Back to our interactive story. Officer Ken Cannon has shot and killed the dog that assaulted his daughter Amber. But he did so 11 days after the attack. The animal was still in the yard, his child was still terrified, and authorities had still failed to act. Was he justified in shooting the dog? You can log on anytime and tell us what you think. The question is about to go to the jury. Here again, Hoda Kotb.
Prosecutors have painted him a canine vigilante.
Of all people, a police officer should know better than to take the law.
Will he go out and do this again?
As Officer Cannon's trial approached 5 months later, everyone seemed to have an opinion. The morning paper was filled with editorials, some calling Ken the loose cannon, a man with no self-control, a trigger-happy cop. Gainesville Times editorial page editor Rick Parnham says no other story last year provoked such a gut-level response.
People don't like what they viewed as the Wild West mentality. And people say, well, how can we have an officer of the law, a police officer, basically take the law into his own hands?
But was Officer Cannon some kind of lawless cowboy who deserved to be punished for what he did? Or was he justified in killing his neighbor's dog and therefore should walk free?
Please be seated.
As the trial got underway, the prosecutor seemed to have an airtight case. Not just a witness and physical evidence, but a flat-out admission from the man himself.
You killed Bud, correct?
I killed him.
You did nothing other than go get your gun and shoot that dog.
That's exactly what I did, Larry.
Officer Cannon was not apologizing. He says he was protecting his family and the community from a dangerous animal. But the prosecutor would argue that at the time Bud was shot, no one was in harm's way. In fact, Officer Cannon's family wasn't even in the state at the time.
Unless that dog sprout wings and flew to Mississippi, it was not going to attack your family that afternoon, was it?
That's correct.
And if that wasn't enough, the prosecutor had another powerful piece of evidence, that damaging taped conversation to animal control.
They should have came out after this dog. It's still tied up in my backyard, so I'm going to go out here and shoot it.
When you said to dispatch, hey, that dog's still tied up out there, I'm going to go out back and shoot that dog. It sounds like a threat.
Yeah, it was.
It was intended to be a threat.
Sure. I thought it might give them a little bit of intensity to do something, yeah.
And there was something else. The prosecution argued Officer Cannon never bothered to look into the most obvious option. He never knocked on Linda Carpenter's door to ask why the dog was back.
You didn't bother to find out.
I didn't care.
You didn't care.
She made her decision.
And you made yours.
That's correct, I did.
And Linda Carpenter said if he had asked, she would have told him that Bud was going to be euthanized the very next day. She said she brought him home for one last meal.
I felt sorry for him. They told me up at the vet that he hadn't eaten very well, and I took him home to take him out in the backyard to feed him.
And did you feed him?
Yes, sir.
And did you give him some water?
Yes, sir.
All right, sir. Have a good day.
And most importantly, the prosecution argued, Animal Control explained to Officer Cannon the lengthy procedure the agency needed to follow in dealing with a dog bite.
I explained to him briefly, not in detail as I have previously here, what the process would entail.
Hall County Animal Control.
In fact, the process required several steps, an investigation, paperwork, hearings. It could all take weeks in order to officially declare the dog dangerous. And then, if it was declared dangerous, it would ultimately be up to Linda Carpenter to either euthanize her dog or keep it in an enclosed pen on her property. The prosecutor said Officer Cannon knew the process was getting underway.
You as a police officer know that sometimes the wheels of justice move slowly.
Sure.
But do you think it's fair then that if government doesn't do what it's supposed to do, then it's up to us to go out there and just do what we think is right, to take the law into our own hands?
I believe each and every person has to be responsible in protecting their family and their community. And if it's so be it that they have to shoot an animal, then shoot it.
Officer Cannon knew the law. He broke the law.
Okay.
But to defense attorney Dan Summer, that didn't make him a guilty man.
In this country, you're allowed to break the law if you're justified.
Officer Cannon's defense would be built not on whodunit, But why?
In my heart, I knew he hadn't done anything wrong. He did what any God-fearing, decent parent would have done, and that is eliminate the threat to his child.
The defense first called Officer Cannon's daughter, Amber, to the stand.
He bit me on my arm and my chest, the back of my shoulder, and across my head.
Amber testified she lived not only with the physical scars, but the long-lasting emotional scars as well.
You had a dream the dog got loose?
Yes, I did.
And what happened when the dog got loose?
He had killed me.
This is a justification defense.
The defense set out to show that Officer Cannon was not a violent, angry man, simply a concerned and loving father, afraid the dog would attack again, and that he shot only as a last resort.
Now, let me ask you this, Officer Cannon. First of all, are you proud that you shot the dog?
Not proud, no.
Are you ashamed that you shot the dog?
No, I'm not ashamed.
All right.
I felt as though it was a ticking bomb. I felt as though that could go off at any time, and I felt I had a responsibility to act.
The defense said the dog was an immediate threat tied up out back, even with Officer Cannon's family away from home. There were other children in the area, and Linda Carpenter, the dog's owner, never warned anyone he could snap.
There were no fences?
No, sir.
Did you have a sign up that said, warning, dangerous dog?
No, sir.
Is there anything that would have put anybody on notice, whether it be man, woman, or child, that Bud was there and could make physical contact with that person?
No, sir. There was nothing up.
And about that phone call to animal control played earlier in court,
He said, they need to come out here and deal with it. I'm going to deal with it. I'm not going to leave it out here with my children.
the defense attorney argued it was nothing more than a cry for help, begging someone to get rid of the dog. As for talking to Linda Carpenter, there seemed to be no use in that, the defense said. They said it was obvious how she felt when she brought the dog back home.
You saw that as what, a slap in the face?
No, I didn't take it personal, but I took it as though she didn't care about my children.
The defense attorney was about to turn the tables. He said the wrong person was on trial. It wasn't his client, Officer Cannon, who was to blame, but the government agency, Animal Control, for doing nothing, and Linda Carpenter, the dog's owner, for bringing the dog back. Animal Control Officer Rick Phillips took the stand and acknowledged he didn't respond quickly after Amber was mauled on Friday.
So all of Saturday and Sunday and half of Monday, there was a danger to the public out there on Georgia Avenue, wasn't there?
A dog had bitten someone? Yes, sir.
All right. Didn't it concern you as the head animal control officer that a dog that had bitten a child was
yes, sir.
In a yard?
Yes, sir.
Not confined,
yes,
simply
sir.
Restrained?
Yes, sir.
And you did nothing, did you, Officer Phillips?
I did what I believe with what I am allowed to do within the limits of the law at this time, sir.
But 11 days after his daughter's attack, Officer Cannon saw no sign that anyone was going to do anything fast enough. After all, Bud was tied up, same chain, same tree, same spot. At this point, the defense said it was understandable that Officer Cannon would run out of patience.
Here's a guy that exercised, in my opinion, enormous restraint. Most people, like myself, I would have shot the dog that night. End of discussion. But Ken, because he's a trained police officer, tried to do the right thing until it was evident at the very end that he wasn't going to get any help from anybody. The check wasn't in the mail. They've got the wrong person on trial, folks.
In closing arguments, the defense attorney slammed Animal Control and then directly addressed Linda Carpenter.
And how dare they come in here and ask you to convict this man when that woman has done what she has done? Let her stare at me all day long. That's just fine, Miss Carpenter. That is unconscionable.
You made Linda Carpenter out to be the bad guy.
She was the bad guy. There's absolutely no way in the world that any decent human being is going to put the welfare of an animal over the health and safety of a child. End of discussion.
Would the jurors see it the same way? After 4 days of testimony, Officer Cannon's fate rested in their hands, and they would do something no one expected.
We'll learn what the jury decided and how you voted when we come back.